Thank you very much, Legal Era, and all the people who have sponsored this engagement. Really thankful to each one of you. We are already into 15 minutes past 5. So I request my fellow panelists to take due attention to the time that's available. And at the same time, I would like the audience, if they have any questions, to put it on the chat box, and we will be able to take them on an email subsequent to the session, because I would like to allow the panelists to express their opinions in the limited time available. Thank you very much. We all know we have gone through a very difficult time, but at the same time, the businesses have looked at three important factors: the agility and the drive that they need to have and continuously improve upon, the relationship that mattered at most with all the consumers, as the keynote address Honorable Justice Deepak Mishra said, consumer is everything. And when we look at the world of the consumer, the last of the experience that he had or she had with our brands, with our products, with our services, whichever industry it is, whichever segment or sector it is, that matters. And given the scenario of new normal that has been there and that's continuing even today, I would say the focus on the consumer, the delivery of services or goods, the agility that is required, the cohesion that is internally required for organizations to work together, be it on customer centricity, customer relationships, identifying customer needs, servicing the best each time, and ultimately ensuring that the organization as one single front is available to the consumer to service and get to see the measured satisfaction from the consumer every time he or she experiences a brand or a service or a product. Given these pointers, I have pointed questions to our panelists who will be able to tell from their experience and from observations that they have had with various industries with which they have been associated. Thank you very much for each one of you for giving your thoughts right away. First, I would like to check with the auto industry, which has gone through a very turbulent time. And as the General Counsel, I would go to Yogesh Wadhwa to ask him what are the views that he has as to how best the consumer was served during the pandemic by the companies across in general. Going forward, in which innovative way can legal and judicial services sector target to serve the products and services industry while adopting learnings from the ongoing pandemic for ultimate consumer satisfaction? And Yogesh, do you think all the government and the Supreme Court targeted work regarding price control, be it on domestic flight tickets, interest moderation on loans, vaccine, medicine price policy, virtual hearings, e-courts, all these changes, whether they have delivered on the new consumer-focused innovation and whether this is going to become the order of the future for the industry also to carry along? Over to you, Yogesh.
Thank you, Chakra. Am I audible well?
Yes.
Thank you. So I think thanks for setting the context. I'll start with specific to my sector. So if we speak of the auto sector in specific, what we first saw that like any other industry, the sector was badly hit. All the showrooms were closed. There are no consumers in the market. And while we had all the consumers who are in the road, who have already purchased the car, many cases where the warranties were getting expired and they are not able to get, say, their car serviced, or there are breakdowns which are happening. So just to ensure that we are serving the customer at large, as a very normal kind of a gesture, the warranties were extended so that, people can avail those kind of opportunities. Similarly, the auto sector also moved a large extent to a virtual kind of services. So if you see today's world, most of the car companies, including mine, we are able to sell and offer services through our own website, wherein any of the customer can go and make a choice, be it color, be it model, have a 360 kind of experience, and make a choice of the decision which they want to do. So that's a virtual world which pandemic has taught us, and definitely that brings in a lot of more kind of comfort to the customer at large. Equally, if I speak of, say, the litigation from a consumer protection, while to some extent everything was pretty dull, it stopped to a large extent, but now eventually we see that things are moving back to a normal shape. I'm sure other people are also going to touch upon the various aspects of changes to the Consumer Protection Act which have come into force, and there are so many additional protection, including on e-commerce, which has been provided to the customer at large. Moving on and speaking specifically on the role of, say, judiciary, which also played a big role when it comes to pandemic. As a consumer requiring any kind of medical services, me, my family also, and many of us, we were all affected during the second wave. And what we saw that, be it any kind of medicines or vaccinations, everything was in a short supply. Now, was that because of actual shortage? Was that because of a lot of hoarding which was happening? But definitely an intervention was required. So while at one side, the government was doing their own efforts to bring in efficiency in the system so that people don't suffer, they get the right kind of facilities. There were a lot of judicial intervention which was also made. A number of petitions were filed before the High Court, and ultimately the Supreme Court also took up the matter suo moto. And passing on a judgment around that, a lot of directions were issued to the government. So while most of these directions were kind of recommendations, suggesting the government to speak and intervene from perspective of either the patent acts, just to ensure that large number of players can do a manufacturing, be it the Disaster Management Act, wherein they can take control of things, and similarly from a Drugs and Cosmetics Act also, wherein the price could be controlled. So various kind of measures have been taken and definitely help the customer at large. But still, I feel that there were a couple of the sectors which still, despite the government intervention and the judicial intervention, they could not get the right kind of results. We had examples of airlines. I'm sure the sector got badly hit, but many of the consumers who had booked their tickets, even after the judicial intervention where the court passed an order for the refund to almost all the airlines, many of them were still holding back the money because they themselves possibly were not in a position to return the money to the consumers. So I think it has been a mix of effect to all of us, largely affecting the consumers at large. We had plus points where the courts moved towards a virtual court so that the justice could prevail and the requirements could continue. But equally, as I took the example of either the kind of air tickets, which the tickets were not refunded. There have been examples where the government intervened to give away the interest on the loans where the people were suffering, the insurance kind of requirements. So very mix of norms. We definitely have a lot of improvement to do, but with the help of judicial intervention as well as the government intervention, I think consumer were catered to a large extent.
Thank you for that detailed note on your experience as a consumer, as well with reference to the industry in which you have been associated with, and what best could be achieved. Do you think the future is going to be a situation of what is present today in terms of solutions for the consumer?
Well, I'll say it's a mix of things. So definitely, with online kind of facilities, definitely the consumer is at much more comfort, wherein they prefer not to step out because of COVID pandemic in any case, and plus the comfort level. It's a mix of things. Courts right now, we have been hearing the news that they are looking to open from the physical kind of hearing now very soon. So possibly a good mix of both the things, that's a norm to come.
So from what you just now expressed, I can safely say that the new tech world is going to be something which is going to be the bridge for in-house counsels as well as industry in general to reach out to the consumer?
Definitely, I totally agree on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Panduranga, thank you for your attention. I have a question for you. Do you think, having seen what earlier Swiggy has been and what it is today and what it did as a service as well as business for the community during the pandemic and thereafter, do you think e-commerce, order data tracking, consumer preferences and AI, other IT tools used in different companies and diverse industries to collaborate within other functions internally as to consumer care, consumer grievance redressal tracking, contract management, statutory compliance, IPR protections, litigations in general, will be the future of ultimately serving differing needs of divergent consumer and behavior to aim at a higher level of consumer satisfaction and consumer retention? What do you think exactly is going to pan out in terms of consumer retention and satisfaction? I have mentioned about so many things on IT, digitization, tracking, AI. Go ahead. You are on mute, Panduranga.
My apologies. Thank you, Chakra.
Thank you.
I will try to stitch all these points with the divergent consumer.
Please.
So that it makes more sense from the customer point of view. This pandemic has really opened a new set of consumers who were not transacting online before, right? Despite those who are already transacting online, this pandemic has introduced new set of people. This cohort who has come and experienced this online transactions will definitely have felt these services as good one, and I think this will lead to a way where every services offering should have to have their own online channel so that customer interaction or customer could be engaged with. I think there is already different ways of transacting customers. These brands and companies, traders, over the period of time, things have evolved from independent store to modern trade to e-commerce. The future could be social commerce, where people can group together and make bulk orders to take cost advantage of such, and also be able to bargain better with those brands and the sellers. Those are all the new possibilities. However, I feel the amendment introduced by the Ministry of Consumer Affairs into e-commerce rules, which was introduced last year, and we are already seeing an amendment to that in this year. So I'm not really surprised. These rules in a one year time have seen so much of a mechanical issues that government felt that there should be a need of making amendments to these rules. Apart from that, I think over a period of time, things have changed drastically, where because of an intervention of technology, companies are able to now understand consumers better and their preferences better. And it is also trying to solve consumers' problem in over a transaction. This is also has improved. We can't just think of a situation where people can order online. To today, people would want to make an order, and transaction is completed in 15 minutes to 30 minutes. That's a long way we have come, right? With cash on delivery option, multiple payment options, which otherwise was not available to consumers earlier. I think consumers have been patient earlier to place an order and wait for 14 days to 15 days. Now consumers also have want things to be delivered same day or maybe in an hour's time. So things have changed. Consumers are also demanding. I think this is also in a way good to redefining those e-commerce, those companies who were providing services online have to look at how they operate and how they can fulfill these consumer ambitions. Interestingly, when you say as companies were to look into internally their processes, and while they will be able to were looking at data informations to review consumer preferences and consumer preferences and consumer behavior to improvise their services. Most of the time, this is lack of skills which really not helping, because you might be able to track a customer's behavior on a platform and see how a customer is behaving, what could be the preferences of such customers. But unfortunately, we don't think of post-transaction situations where we are expected to look at what will happen if a customer is not satisfied with a certain product have some product deficiency or a service deficiency, all of that. So generally, what happens is, do we really look at those grievances that we receive from the customers? Do our channels open to customers will have additional options? I see most of these consumers today will be able to raise complaints over chat box or an automated tools where they have a limited options. Choose from this. You have product deficiency, you have this, you have this, you have this. Choose from that and then raise your complaint. Most of these standardized templates may not suit to really understand a customer, which needs complete overall and a complete review as to give an option of customer to write what customer wants to, so that backend will be able to analyze such data and understand what was the real problem. I can actually take a reference of exercise that I have did in my previous experience. We were seeing consumer complaints gradually increasing, and that has really increasing on a high speed. The number of cases were increasing, and this was really costing the company, and we felt that this is not okay, because high number of consumer cases means is the most dissatisfied consumers. So we went back to analyze all the consumer matters and the claims that were made, and we also went back to make those claims which these customers have to tell to the court, but that may not have a legal remedy available to them. But generally, their dissatisfactions were also recorded in the consumer complaints. We did a reading of these complaints, and we collected all these information, and we found there are certain category. We put them into multiple buckets and made detailed analysis of it. We went back to review our consumer communications list. We did that exercise. We took almost a month-long exercise to review each and every communications in all channels that we used to communicate to consumers. We reviewed, we modified those communications. We made them more apt to the consumers, and we made them more clear to the consumers. We removed the element of irritation that customer would generally feel if such answers were to come. Templatized answers mostly is not welcomed by a consumer. So we did all of that exercise, and then we were to see there was within a 2 to 3 months time when these communications started flowing out. We have seen a drop of 30% consumer. I think that itself was a huge.
So that experience now, I think, given that post-pandemic world is also looking at divergent consumer, differing consumer needs, identifying the exact consumer want and servicing it, ultimately means going into the gravy and to see and ensure that each one and whose taste matters to you as a consumer is serviced better by you.
Yeah, I think there is no need of a consumer policy to mandate how a company should operate. This recent amendments looks to be an excessive for intervention of a business, how these e-commerce companies were to do. But I think it is always been a customer-driven proposition for these companies to change their behavior and to serve their consumers better. I think that should always be the sole option for these companies to look at, to keep more options and keep engaging with the customers. Now that customers may not come to your stores, then all the more it is important for you to make sure that customer engagement is on a higher
So
side.
trust and transparency, and ultimately ensuring that consumers need being looked at to be serviced seems to be the hallmark going forward, which each company needs to look at in terms of brand building and value creation. Thank you for that. I would like to now seek out some views from Mr. Amit Bhasin. Amit, in this post-pandemic time, I think you're the best judge. The consumer is now targeting, according to my opinion, health and well-being, environment, and clubbed with affordability. And at the same time, looking at brand reliability in products and services. So what, according to you, are the important aspects for companies to rebuild or enhance brand loyalty and consumers' trust? And what will be your areas of focus as an in-house counsel to enhance legal tech tools and other innovations and availability of them to your teams to ensure high collaboration for ultimate consumer satisfaction and benefit? Thank you. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chakra, and thanks Legal Era for kind of inviting me for this discussion. Chakra, 3 parts to your question, and I will try to address them. I think the first part is what has happened to the consumer behavior and the consumer needs. And you have rightly pointed out, there are a lot of fundamental changes that have happened during the pandemic period in the consumer behavior. I think everyone thought that they may be temporary, but as we are now moving ahead and seeing the world seems to be a changed place, and some of these changes seems to be more permanent in nature. If we really identify the top ones, and there are no surprises here, one is of course the digital adoption. We have seen a lot of digital adoption. People who were not kind of earlier used to order online have moved online, and there are a lot of research that has already happened on it. A lot of data is already available. If you look at even the lives of corporates, how many meetings earlier used to happen on Teams, and now virtually the whole kind of environment is on Teams or on virtual meetings. So yeah, the world has changed, and the digital adoption has really accelerated in last couple of years. I think from a consumer point of view, if you look at it, while consumer is buying online, the consumer has also started expressing themselves online more, which means if they like you, right, they will be vocal about it on Twitter, on Facebook, and other social media platforms. And if they don't like you, they will also not be hesitating to talk about it in the social media. So I think buying online and sharing online both became important during these times. I think the second one was health and well-being, and the consciousness for wealth and well-being. I think suddenly health, well-being, mental well-being, good for family, what is good for my kids, what is good for my parents, took a center stage, right? And health was always important, but it was not so important if I talk from an India scenario point of view. But I think that shift happened during the pandemic period, and I think people started basing a lot of their choice on what is good for me, what is healthy for me, is it going to provide some kind of immunity to me? So I think that became another important parameter. I think the third one, which again you have talked about, is value for money, right? There was always this fear in the mind of consumer to save because the future was uncertain, and therefore saving suddenly became important, and people therefore started moving from what was good to do to must have. I think now we see some change happening in that behavior of, again, people going to leisure, spending into kind of activities which give them more joy. But I think if you look at the first part of the pandemic, clearly the focus was on what is bare minimum, and I should save because I am not aware what the future is going to look like. So that is another shift that happened, and that led to another change, Chakra, which is the brand loyalty is moved. People were okay to move to another brand if it was giving them similar kind of a benefit. So while they were looking for assurances from the brand, they were looking for authenticity from the brand. consumer was okay to kind of move to other brands as well, because they moved online, a lot of choices were there, right? That was another shift that we have seen. I talked about online. Online became important, but I think other constituency from a consumer good point of view, which became very, very important, is the local shops. Suddenly, local shops, the nearby kirana stores became very important, because there was less mobility. You wanted to be dependent on that local kirana shop, because he was the one who is ready to give you anything, anytime that you want on your phone call, right? So at one place, the online became important. At other place, the local kirana became very, very important from a consumer lens point of view. And I think the last thing that you highlighted is, of course, the consciousness for the planet. And again, it may be in the varying degrees at different consumers, but yes, somewhere consumer realize that if the world has to be a good place to live, they have to play their part. And therefore, consumers started looking for more sustainable product. They started asking few of the questions as to what is good from an environment point of view. Now, those are few fundamental shifts, and there may be few, but I'm just calling out the key which I think are important for the point of view of this discussion. If you look at this from a point of view of next part of your question as to what companies should do to really be relevant from a consumer goods company point of view, I think the first thing is that you have to be omnipresent. It is not about that you are only online or you are only in modern trade and you are only in e-commerce. I think you have to be there where the consumer want you, and you have to be in the format where consumer want you. That became very important, and this is going to continue, because consumer will make choices going forward. Things are not going to be the same as it was there in the pre-pandemic era, and therefore if you want to reach out to your consumer, you have to be there where your consumer is, right? So that is important. Are you able to identify the unsolved consumer need is the another question which brands have to really ask themselves, right? Are you solving what consumer is looking for? Are you solving their problem and solving it in the way they look for is the another thing which became very, very important for brands. And we have seen a lot of innovation coming in last couple of years in the Indian market. And some of them are really good innovation, which are really solving the unsolved consumer needs. So that will continue to be an important one. At the same time, one of the most important thing, Chakra, which I think is important and consumer looked at it very carefully, was whether you are authentic and whether you are honest about what you're saying. We have saw all sorts of claims that are coming. Every other brand was saying that I will enhance your immunity. Every other brand started saying that I will help you come out of COVID. There were all sorts of claims, and we have seen on the product where we know that as a matter of fact, they cannot deliver it. I think consumers were intelligent enough to say whether the brand can really deliver to the promise that they are asking for or not. And I think that's where, the difference between a responsible corporation and an unresponsible corporation, while many people try to do benefit of consumer sentiment because they were looking for that kind of a product, it was important to be honest and being kind of responsive to it and authentic to what you are. If you're claiming that you are delivering a benefit, you better deliver it. That's what consumers were asking us. And the last one I would say is impact on the community and beyond the corporation. I think that is another thing which consumer were looking at as a corporation in the time of pandemic, when the community needs you. Are you there? Are you really doing right things for the community, for the society and large, and for the consumer? Is something that the consumers were asking us, and the companies who have stood by it are going to gain in the long term on this. So I think these are the trends from a consumer point of view, and these are few things I feel the companies who will continue to be honest, to be authentic, the brands which will solve the need that consumer is asking for will continue to be relevant for the consumers. The brands which are thinking beyond themselves and are thinking for community, thinking for the environment in total, will continue to be relevant for the consumers going forward, because consumers are going to be more and more demanding on some of these things. So that's the second part of your question. And coming to the last one, as what we can do as legal teams, I think legal team, we have a very important job to ensure what I talk about, whether the brands are authentic, whether the claims that you are making is authentic or not. I think that's where you are acting as a gatekeeper, as a conscious keeper for the corporation. That is the role that you need to play. The other is the speed and agility, right? The speed with which the product has to be launched in the market. If you have identified a consumer need, the product has to go into the market quickly, and that's what the corporations are looking for. As a legal team, are you equipped to take your decision quickly, move ahead quickly, while ensuring that the basics are right at all places? Something that is important, and that capability needs to be built in the legal teams. And I think in the last few sessions we have talked about the importance of IT, importance of data for the companies. How companies are using that data in a responsible way, how they are doing the whole data privacy framework and the privacy culture in the company, whether it is being built in the right way or not, will continue to be important for all of us in the legal team. I think as a legal counsel, you need to now give swift solutions to your business while partnering, and it has to be holistic in all respect. It has to look at the privacy angle as well. It has to look the business partnering angle as well. It has to look from a compliance angle as well. It has to look from a competition angle as well. And are you capable to deliver that kind of business partnering to your business with the speed with which the business is asking is what is the need of the hour? And for that, the advent of IT, use of the IT tools become very important for all of us as legal professionals, so that we can free up our time and invest time where really it matters. And now there is enough and more tools which are available in the market, which one can definitely use to one is streamline the processes in the legal, which gives you better information. At the same time, you invest your time from the business partnering point of view for the business where they really need it. So I think those are few things that I will call about, Chakra, on as a legal team, what we can do. I think as a legal professional, we need to continue to upskill ourselves and be ready for the future of the business, because life 5 years hence is not going to the same which we have seen in the pre-pandemic era. Thank you, Chakra.
Thank you, Amit, for all those specific views and where you felt consumer ultimately is the person where we need to have focus on, and the best ways in which we can ensure to see that his needs are met with. And we always have in our thoughts the only manner in which how we can ensure satisfaction for the consumer as the heightened importance. Thank you for all those views. Mr. Venkat, I would like to now take your views on board, and I'll be happy to, in fact, learn from you on specifics about these pointers that I am trying to give you and put it on table so that you can address them. There have been many changes made, and as well some are in draft stage in law that we have been regularly noting down. Like, say, Consumer Protection Act has gone through a tremendous change, e-commerce. Then there have been also regulations related to discounts, big day sales. Then we have seen some discussion and talk about judiciary, e-courts and e-courts enablement for the lower judiciary. And then now there is a new statutory authority which is going to closely look at issues connected with brands, products and claims, like called Central Consumer Protection Authority, CCPA. So, and most important, what can go wrong with a celebrity endorsement and what needs to be taken care of in terms of having an endorsement being made by a celebrity. So what are your views on how to build consumer awareness on product choices, consumer satisfaction, how best we can address? And how do you think consumers get redressal with all focus, considering what Amit also expressed just now, that if a consumer is happy, they will immediately go on social media. The same thing also happens when they're not happy, and that impacts your brand and its trust from a large group of people. And it happens within no matter of time. Flick of a button and it just passes on. So let me know what are your views on all this that I mentioned, and more importantly, talk about what these changes are going to make for the consumer ultimately. These changes or trends of changes or drafts that are being made. Of course, the industry is also keenly following, but where do we stand in terms of consumer getting the benefits out of all these changes that are happening in the consumer laws and regulations?
Thank you, Chakra. Thank you, Legal Era, for providing us an opportunity to talk about latest development. Before I speak, I just wanted to tell today we are in a different space altogether. We never ever experienced this kind of a space or this kind of a experience in our lifetime. This is only in the lifetime we are facing this. So we are accustomed to what is happening today. In this background, I just wanted to talk about how exactly this consumer protection laws evolving. Earlier, 1986 Act talk about only goods. Now, 2019 Act talk about services. Then lot of changes happen. Second thing, major thing, first time Consumer Protection Act introduced market regulator like Drugs and Cosmetics Act or Food Safety Act. They have also introduced the market regulator called Central Consumer Protection Authority. Third one, e-commerce, which is fast evolving and with a lot of changes or proposals which government wanted to introduce. But not least, we wanted to have a self-regulator. ASCII plays a major role how exactly happening in the industry. With this approach, what is as a role in in-house legal counsel to take care of the consumer? We are all experiencing today consumer wants everything quick. Earlier, when we started our law practice or when we are working in the company, we always we can give a reply in 2 weeks time or 3 weeks time. Today, everything should happen 24 hours notice. If I am not giving a reply, then yes, you rightly mentioned out, which Amit also pointed out, they will go to social media. Then they will issue a note, they will publish a notice in the social media. So that is the era we are living in. So we need to really fasten up our approach. There are two ways of looking at Chakra, in my view. One is proactive and another one is reactive. What is proactive? I just wanted to be very clear. If my communication is clear and factual, nobody will challenge me. If I am not clear or if I am misleading the consumer, definitely they will take me for a ride. That is the only thing that we need to understand. In that perspective, if we are able to address that aspect, then most of our problem would get solved. Always it happen is, we are all lawyers, but when we are working in a company, we are all marketing lawyers. We have to step into the shoes of consumer, what he will think. Which Jeff was usually saying, no, Amazon, whenever he is having a meeting, there is always one blank space he used to keep as if consumer is sitting there. Whenever he takes any decision or whenever he calls any views, he always says how this person will think. Then only he will take a decision. If consumer is the king, now we need to be very clear what we have to do that. In that perspective, we need to be proactive. In that proactive, we need to be very, very fast. If we are not fast, then there will be a delay. If there is a delay, then we cannot go further. That is number one. Number two, main issue. We are not a litigating personalities. Today, everything happening because if once I lost consumer trust, it is like operation success, patient died. What is the use? We don't have anything. Is that so? At the end of the day, consumer loyalty or consumer trust. It is not only consumer satisfaction. It is consumers' loyalty is more important for me to succeed in the business. Today, competition is there. Each and every category there is a competition. Earlier days, I am the monopoly. We can say today that is not the approach here. Everybody is coming. Startup day by day is coming. Day by day they are coming. We never thought about Swiggy. We never talk about any other fast medium supply chain. Today, everything happening. Today, people are not going out. Everything they wanted immediately, big basket, milk basket, everyone is doing that. So we need to have a clear-cut understanding what is their requirement. So here only law plays a major role. Even some losses are redundant, if you ask me, because why, what happened? Who is going to file a case? Nobody wanted to file a case. They just wanted to know that if the consumer is happy, everything is happy. That is the way it is approaching. What is the reactive approach I can approach? If I wanted to be reactive, I have to be transparent. I have to communicate in clear terms. If I commit a mistake, we have to be honest in accepting the mistake also. Yes, we did wrong. There was a damage in the product due to supply chain out of issues or at the manufacturing defect. If you are accepting that wrong, any consumer will not say anything because if you are very fair, they also know that in this pandemic, what are they expecting? Expectation first reply. That reply should be clear reply, transparent reply. There should not be any mistake. That's all. First, we have to address that. Once we address that, everything will get into the picture. Coming back to celebrity thing, what is celebrity today? What everything happening, which Amit slightly touched upon, immunity claim. Yes, everybody wanted to claim immunity. That nowadays what has happened, the significance of immunity claim has lost its original version, because everyone is claiming immunity. Everyone says this can cure coronavirus. How is it possible? Everybody, well, consumer knows which one he want to buy, which one doesn't want to buy also. That is the reason only Consumer Protection Authority coming into the picture. They are laid down rules, everything. Having laid down the rules, everything, at the end of the day, in-housing council, we need to examine whether this claim will sustain. If this claim is sustainable, then definitely we have a chance. If it is not successful, then there is no point in making a claim. Today, it is not only on pack claim, it is on advertisement, print media, social media, everywhere, each and every occasion, they wanted to know what is happening there. All communication today is being scrutinized by the consumers. So I cannot say that if I am not making a claim on pack, okay, I can do it in advertisement, or I can do print media, or I can do social media. All communications are being scrutinized. For that only, now ASCII has come out with endorsement claim. How exactly social media influencer guidelines? There are some, because be fact. If it is paid communication, please state the fact. Nobody is going to say anything on that. If you are suppressing or if you are misleading, then definitely there will be question. Similarly, for celebrity, they are not discouraging any celebrities to make any endorsement. Please do, but please do due diligence. Quality and safety, you need to be first cognizant of that. If you are cognizant of quality and safety, no one can challenge that. So these are all the points I just wanted to tell today as a marketing lawyer or in-house lawyer. First of all, there should be a cross-functional team. In that cross-functional team, each and everyone has to analyze from consumer perspective. Yes, business perspective should be there. At the end of the day, consumer is the final authority for my success in the business. That's all I wanted to say. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Venkat. From what you have deciphered, which I would like to put in probably some marketing terminology, the content, the experience, the emails that you send out, the mobile applications that you send out as usable by the consumer, the commerce, that is the physical retail, and the mobility being a factor, the smallest of the kirana shop where you will make your product available, the e-commerce, the hybrids that you look at in terms of what product and service can be made available to the consumer and the focus, the community that you would like to serve, that is whether you're going to have a virtual trade fair, whether you're going to make a brand marketing in a virtual scenario or a test marketing, and then trying to see and gauge the consumer sentiment with reference to a particular need being fulfilled, and ultimately the convenience. You mentioned about Big Basket, whether they offer the coupons or benefits or loyalty programs for retention. So these 4 C's, content, commerce, community, and convenience, if these are not taken into account by brands and the advertising, because advertising is a promise, and if these are not taken into account, then ultimately your ability to service the consumer and his satisfaction, and particularly when a divergent consumer in different channels is going to seek out what you're going to offer, if all these things are not being seen by you as priorities, then somewhere I think internally in the organization or in the company that you're in, the collaboration may be probably missing. The internal teams that work along with the lawyers, along with the market professional, brand promise professional, advertisers, need to look at showing up a single face for the consumer in terms of what they offer as products and services. Thank you for those wonderful views. I thank the panel for giving a clear idea on what is the new VUCA world and the consumer that is available there, and what best needs to get addressed vis-a-vis the consumer's needs and satisfaction that we target to have as business and industry. Thank you very much for your views. And since we are close to the time that's given, exactly at 6, I would still wait for the presenter to let me know whether there are questions, and if there are questions, is there time available for us to speak, or should we address them in an email? Thank you for your views and your time.
Mr. Chakradhar, firstly, I have to say thank you to you and to the entire panel, because precision is the word that, you know, that defines this panel. So thank you for being absolutely right on time. That's one. And if there's any question that has directly come to you, that will be great if you can address Mr. Chakradhar. We do have some time, but if not, if the questions are very slowly and steadily making their mark onto the screen, then of course we will have them addressed separately. So anything that has come to your chat box, Mr. Chakradhar?
As of now, I am unable to see any, but if there is a question, I'll be happy to take it and then respond to it. And or else through Legal Era, a response can reach. Thank you. Absolutely. And thank you for the viewers and the audience of Legal Era for giving us an opportunity to express ourselves on an important topic, and ultimately saying consumer is the be all and end all for the industry.